Tell us a little bit about yourself. Why are you a poet?
Well, it's a matter of influences, really. I just grew up in a set of circumstances that just kind of sent me there, you know. First thing was my mom had a typewriter, you know, and I would observe her, how fast she typed. She typed about 120 words a minute, something phenomenal like that. And that was because she was a head secretary over at NASA, and my dad was an engineer at NASA. And so I'd observe kind of what she was doing. And then a year or two later, she got a computer back in the day. This is like in the 80s, early 80s. She got an IBM. And I noticed she was keeping a journal, you know, and I just kind of watched that in my life a little bit. Little did I know that it was going to just turn into something on my own side that was poetic in any kind of way. And then I ran into people who were writers who put out magazines, fanzines, and all that in our punk scene in DC. And a friend of mine, he talked me into doing this magazine with him, and we got into doing a magazine together, and I started writing, and one day I was just writing something, and it was a poem. It was my first poem I think I wrote on my 18th birthday, something like that. Maybe it was my 19th birthday. I'm 41 now, and I was like, this is not a poem, and my friend was like, this is a poem. You know, he was refuting me, and I knew from that moment that maybe he might have been right. That's where it began, you know. And why now is it's a perpetuation. It continues. It became a drive. It became so driven to do it because it's under my skin. You know, it's my way of communication. It's already my thought process. It's a matter of, do I want to get it out? Do I want to archive it in some way? Do I need to get it out? Do I have this need to get it out in a certain way? You know, whereas like maybe I'm saying more to the page than I'm saying to you. You know, that drives me. Like, am I saying something more? Is there something that's getting out, a deeper truth getting out of me by my relationship there, rather than to another human being, you know? So, and in the whole act of getting it out to multiple people, publishing, or later rejecting it to the audience, you know, became a revolution for me. It was the hugest next chapter, like in my life, to do this in front of people. So.
Throughout your poetry career, have you had any influences?
Yeah, I mean, the whole life, you know, experience where I'm just drawing from influence after influence. I mean, as far as other poets and stuff, yeah, there's been quite a number. I mean, I came up through the whole open mic scene in College Park, Maryland, which is right on the edge of DC, and my old stomping grounds there. And yeah, so it was the open mic scene and the whole spoken word scene, or slam poetry scene, or whatever. They were kind of like all kind of almost intertwined, but there was a division there. And yeah, I think it started early on just from writing and having influences as writers, you know, Dostoevsky or J.D. Salinger or some other, you know, dead writer, on into contemporaries, those who I did the whole spoken thing with out in College Park starting up, and, you know, famous people, Saul Williams, or, you know, rap band, rap groups or rock groups, just what's already there in the culture, Yeah, I mean, Charles Bukowski was a big influence at one point, I think you just kind of have to look at your life, an era of your life in connection almost sometimes, it seems, with particular writers or whatever. Oh, that was a J.D. Salinger phase of life or whatever, but in one way, we're just being pulled from so many directions, so I don't know.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your publication history. Have you published any chapbooks or...
Yeah, I started out with doing magazines, doing like these fanzines in the punk scene, where only a few issues came out, and then I broke off and started doing my own thing apart from the guy that I was doing that with. So the magazine was kind of behind us, and I started doing my own like chapbooks / magazines or whatever on poetry and philosophy. Did that for a while. Started putting out a lot of individual chapbooks, probably about 10, maybe more than that, for a good span of about a decade or so. Things that would be photocopying and Kinko's or whatever, and collating them all by hand and stapling them on my grandmother's kitchen table and doing that for many years. And, later I got into publishing myself in print shops and doing large format, small format, all the mechanics of that. So I learned a lot as far as how to create a publication that was of greater quality, Now I've been, over the past, I should say, probably 6 years or so, I kind of discovered the whole print on demand thing online, where I go through a certain printer and I get like a nice glossy book out of it. And now, so those days of stapling are done, and now I'm in the age of perfect bindery, and so that has been a lot of fun. So the recent book, I've been putting out books of poetry. The most recent one is called Good Nature. It's just a collection of poems. So the last several have been collections of poems. I did this one called I'm in Your Area, Revenge of the Napkin Poems. And I wrote that all entirely on napkins in a bar. Just drinking a little bit and sitting down with a stack of napkins and writing these haiku-esque poems on individual, napkin slices, and then going out that night and reading them almost as like kind of a warm-up to the other stuff that I was about to do. And so I went through a phase of doing that for about for that season, over the summer. And then I before that I put out a book called Terra, which is a whole other collection of poems from these days here in Houston, So.
How do you normally sell your books? I mean, is it just like out of the trunk of your car? Is it on Amazon?
It's up online. It's on this site called lulu.com. People can order off of there. And the rest of it is just done by hand, and usually I just do it at poetry readings or whatever. I'll have a few with me, and if people want to buy them, they can. But I don't push it too much. It definitely doesn't pay the bills for sure. So yeah, just by hand, word of mouth, and a few people sell them for me or whatever.
Whenever you do readings, is there like a specific piece that people like to hear, something that they request?
People really don't do that with me a whole lot, really. Every now and then it'll happen. I definitely have some that kind of stick out to people. Maybe it's because I shove them down people's throats or whatever, and they're used to hearing that. Or I don't know. I have one called Terra. I have a few from Good Nature, that book. What's the name of that one? Can't recall at the moment. Oh, The Rapture. There's that one. You know, I mean, I like not to kind of typecast myself into certain pieces, and I'd rather people kind of see it as they're gonna get what I'm gonna dish out, you know, like, or they're stepping into my lab. Like, this is my lab, and you're here, and I'm here, and you're gonna watch me do my thing, and you'll get what you're gonna get out of it. You know, that's what it is.
Sort of like a my show, my rules.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go ahead and define poetry. What's poetry for you?
Well, it's a way of capturing what you're thinking, as opposed to small talk. Getting past small talk, and then what's the bigger talk? That's poetry to me. Finding bigger talk, getting past conventional ways of thinking, looking at things as they are, looking at things with a twist, being playful, you know, playful verse, having fun with it, having fun with words, perhaps being caught up in certain structures, the haiku structure or whatever, getting caught up in that for a while for fun, you know, expressing yourself in some kind of comical way, you know, being thoughtful, being playful, you know, and then sharing that, having the balls enough to share that with somebody. You know, a lot of my friends now, we get together and we're hanging out, and they'll say, "You should bust out a poem or something," and it's just, that's our culture that we share, you know, between us. And I don't know, it's the universe.
Okay. The past few interviews I've done, I've just straight up been asking people, is poetry dead? And most of them say no, it's not. Other people have said yes, the market's killed it, or academics have killed it. So give us your thoughts on the debate.
There are two sides, or I should say that there's the internal and external. Internally is everything just, in a way, from the last answer, from what I was already saying about what it is to me, you know. That doesn't die, you know, for me. Like, if I'm alive, that's pretty much what I want to be doing, even if I don't write something down for a year or 10 years or whatever. It's still in me. It's still been a part of me, you know. Externally, like in society, like the original place that I read in College Park, Maryland, Planet X, it's no longer there. That scene is dead. You know, it's gone. The people, a few of them have died already. You know, a few of my friends from there have died. They've dispersed off the East Coast. Some went to New York, or some went to Connecticut. Some went, you know, who knows where. You know, and so a reunion of that scene would be 3 or 4 people at best, when it used to be 80 people or whatever. But that's just one. It's just one place. You know, I came out here, and now there's all these various pockets of, you know, poetry scenes, and they're just going up and down. You know, so if you look at it like that, it's life. It's an ebb and flow. You know. We're living in a very interesting time where we have the internet now. We have all these new ways of looking at things, binge watching, the whole phenomenon of binge watching something. We like to watch, you know, we like to watch stuff. So there's that whole thing. I guess maybe the question in one way is, does a person feel fulfilled by just watching something to the point where they feel they don't have to write something down themselves or something, like they're being fulfilled in some kind of artistic way. Somebody else's thing is fulfilling them in such a way that they don't, that's their entertainment or whatever. And that's their level of creativity, is to watch a box set of something, you know, and then they're just going to move on and do something, some other kind of hobby or something, right? Or so we're just living in a strange time of media where it's like reading is kind of pushed to the back burner, and other forms of media things are really being just blasting at you, you know. I mean, you can really see that when you go to the mall or something, you know. It's just like it's just coming at you. So, but then you look back at the internet and there's something like Twitter, you know. Twitter is saying you have to write this in 142 characters or whatever. It's kind of like the modern day haiku or whatever. So you see it creeping in, like there might be like a crack in the sidewalk and grass is coming up through it. You know, life is like really pushing all the time. And I think poetry is this thing that gets kind of tossed around. It's going to be coming at you from some direction. You know?
Would you say poetry has adapted well to the internet?
Yeah, I would. I mean, the internet is a home of so many positive things, you know, whether it be activism or writing, videos. I mean, you can see that so many music groups have come up through being recognized right on YouTube or whatever. The whole blogging scene, like that is blown up in a big way over the years. I mean, I used to have like a website back in the day, and I had to learn some HTML just to get the damn thing up. Whereas then all these blogging sites started sprouting up, and that gave me like way more convenience. So, I just want to put this here, I just want to post that, and it's there. But that didn't exist, you know, I don't know, 12 years ago or whatever, you know. It's just like a little bit different. So it's made things like a little bit more seamless, you know. And then there's the whole YouTube thing. You can watch tons and tons of footage, you know, videos of footage of live performances or interviews or whatever, all surrounding poetry. You know, I mean, the internet has been amazing in that way. So yeah, I think it's done. I think it's going to be amazing to see what direction the internet opens up new channels for poetry, for sure.
There's an article that says you can tell a medium is still vital by posing the question, can it change anything? Can poetry change anything?
Can poetry change anything? Yes. I mean, it's changed my life, you know. I mean, it opens so many doors. Sometimes they're invisible doors, you know, you don't realize that a new door is being opened up for you right in that way. There have been instances where people would just be cracking up from what I was saying. You know, not any poetry performance or anything, just in the middle of the day I would be saying something and they would say, "Oh, you have a way with words." You know, I don't feel like I always do, you know, but that moment was a direct result of, I look at it as a direct result of me being involved with poetry, poetic way of thinking. It opens avenues of truth in a person, you know, if they're doing it right, you know. And I think being a reader of poetry, I mean, if you like poetry, you're going to generally be a reader of poetry as well. And I look at writers in my life who I feel like, yeah, they changed my life. They changed things. But poetry it's art, you know. How does a painting in the Rothko, how are all those panels on that wall changing people's lives? Well, it's filled up in there. There's a bunch of people in there. How do you define it exactly? You know, it's a whole other story. How does it, it's just burning in you, you know? Do you have something burning in you? So if there's something burning in you, you know, and that's poetry, then yeah, it's changed your life. It's not changed things, it's changed you. And it's changed your whole life. It's put you in different places, you know. Put me in Baltimore one time, you know, to the point I was living there, you know. I mean, I would go from DC to Baltimore to, you know, wherever, you know, 3 times a week sometimes to do all these different poetry events, 3-4 times a week, you know. And here in Houston, we did we've been doing the word around town thing, and that was 7 days a week. You know, I've done that for 4 years, a total of 4 years with them, you know. But does it change things? In a tangible way? Like, I guess it would. In the courtroom, you look, you know, a lot of lawyers are very poetic. I don't know, I see poetry in so many things. So I'm like, yeah, that lawyer is poetic. You know, and they're changing things. They're getting people, innocent people, free, you know. It's just interweaved in the society. I mean, it's all changing things. It's in the music, you know. It's just, poetry is in music. You strip away the music and you have what is directly poetry. But it's all poetry weaved into all kinds of things. All genres wrapping into influencing all other types of genres. You know, rock and hip hop merging in and just moving around like that. You know, it's in everything. It changes everything.
Okay. Quick thing, as a poet, what's your message to younger voices, people who are just sort of getting their face out there in the scene?
Well, have no fear. You know, have no fear. Get rid of fear early on. Whatever initial fear that you might have, look at it as a thing and realize that you can shake it free of you and really concentrate on the craft as opposed to the fear. Get the fear away from you and go headlong into it. When I started reading, I realized right on that was the answer. That was the beginning answer. It was to get rid of the fear. Have no fear of the audience if you're going to do the thing in front of the audience. And from there, take off and concentrate on the craft and how you want to grow. How do you want yourself to come off? How do you want to explore the language? Who do you want to hang out with? Who do you like? Who inspires you? Who influences you? All those things, like just take in like a sponge everything. I used to write on the bus a lot. I used to write on the train a lot. That was a whole major character in my life for a long time. It was my relationship to the transportation, not driving. In that whole DC area, there's so many people that don't drive. I was one of them. And I had a relationship with those environments where they were teaching me things, and that influenced my writing.
Okay. I want to thank you for taking part of this documentary. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
So what are the muses to you?
When you get to a point where you're laughing a little bit, I think when you're making yourself laugh, when you're writing something, like, I don't know, have you got there? Because if you get there, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's the early on sign. You start making yourself laugh a little bit. And then it gets to a point where I need to get there more. I need to get there more. How am I going to do it? And you realize after some time you don't really know how that happens. But you keep running into it over time. Just keep getting there. And you're getting there more and more. And people will start to tell you, you have your own voice. You have I can look at your writing and I can hear your voice in it. I can hear you have a specific way of laying it down. And I think you get there from experience, from persistence, doing it as a ritual. You know, I went from the train to the bus to the coffee shop. And maybe there'll be some new permutation of that at another point, where I'm sitting in a garden all the time or something. I'm just doing all my garden writing, you know, for that year or whatever. You know, you get a relationship with it. You get up early. That might be your hour, the hour of God, right? So it becomes so personal when you do it over and over, and when it's really real for you, when you're really shooting for something. You might be shooting for something that you can't really explain, but you're there for the writing. You're there for the writing. You're there writing, what's up? Hey, I'm here at 5 o'clock in the morning. Here's my life. Here this is, you know, and you get somewhere. Get somewhere that surprises you. And then you start coming up with techniques. Like, one might be, I'm going to write to the end of the sentence, and by the time I get to the end of the sentence, what I had in mind, I'm going to completely throw in a wrench and write something completely different from what I intended by the end of the sentence. To be very quick on the draw, you know. You create little games for yourself like that. When I used to write on the bus, I used to write, oh, we're getting up to this point, and I know there's a pothole there, and I know it's going to shake the whole bus. What words can I get out before the pothole hits and the whole bus just shakes and you can't write anything or whatever? That created something in me that was succinct, you know, like, oh, get there quick, you know. It trained me to write poetry in a certain way. Because if you just write a whole sentence, I helped a little old lady across the street. Well, anybody says that, but what if you say it a little bit differently? Or what if you don't get all the way to the end of that? You know, what is poetry to you? You know, it's so many different things, so many different people. You know, you look at some poems and they're just almost prose. You look at other stuff, William Carlos Williams, whatever, very choppy, or, you know, Zen poetry, very choppy, haiku, choppy as hell. You know, which I love, you know, I love the economics of something like that. Anyway.
Okay.